Hello, this is Kylie from Hello Crafter and welcome to the video for August's card club. And this month we're featuring the Floral Charm suite. That's one of Stampin' Up's online exclusives, and it has the lovely designer series paper, which is what we're using this month, and it also coordinates with the Charming Day stamp set and die bundle, and this is what I've used to design my projects. And you will need this or something similar. I think everybody's got some kind of floral stamp set in their stash, preferably with coordinating dies, so it just takes the pressure off you die cutting them for the cards. But use something like this, and in the suite you do get these embellishments. I've used something different just to mix it up a little bit, but I'll show you that in a moment. These are the stamps and dies that I'm using this month. They are beautiful. I always love a floral set. I just find them very versatile, and there's just something about this one, the size of it, the ease of colouring and the beautiful sentiments as well, that just makes it such a joy to use this one. So you've got the dies that cut out these images, but you've also got these extra dies that cut out these gorgeous floral and leafy shapes as well, that you can cut out from paper and cardstock. You can just cut them out from watercolour card and colour them in. There's just so many things that you can do with this set. That's why I love it so much. But I've kind of barely scratched the surface really of playing with this in your kit, but I will show you the designs in a moment when I've shared with you what's in your box. So as always, you've got your letter showing what you need, what supplies you need to gather. Oh, if you've been in the club for 6 months or more, you've got a voucher to spend, your loyalty voucher. There's a few members this month that's got one of these in their box. And you've got the, what are these called? Low profile dots. These have got the sort of pinky, petal pink, and this kind of clear one that's sort of goldy, but they just go with all of the papers in here. So I really love these. And then you've got this petal pink ribbon. So I was able to get this. This is normally quite expensive, but it's been reduced, so I could get this one. I just love the frilly edge on this one, the scalloped edge. I prefer it to the one that's in the suite, which is lovely, but I find harder to use the braided trim style. I find this ribbon much more easy to use on my cards. So then, yes, you've got your little treat as well. Your 4 card packets. Now, each of these has enough materials to make 2 cards, so you're going to have 8 cards altogether. So a lot of the die cutting is done for you already. You'll just need to do your stamping and your cutting of your designer series papers. Some extra white cardstock in your kit as well. And if you had it posted, you may have some extra bits of card in there. This is just kind of extra bits in case you needed for cutting some leaves out, or extra card for your sentiments. Then the papers. This is absolutely stunning. I love both sides of this. So you've got the really lovely patterned florals on one side in absolutely gorgeous colours, and some of them look spring-like, some of them summer, some of them autumn, so they're going to be really good for all year crafting. And then on the other side you have these lot more soft patterns, so more tone on tone, and really good for backgrounds as well. And you can even do some stamping onto this side. So really gorgeous colours, really gorgeous patterns. Going to have so much fun using that paper up when you're finished. I'm going to show you the projects now. So these are the 4 card designs. They showcase different elements of the suite and different techniques. And this is the first one. We're going to be stamping and colouring a panel of white cardstock and die cutting it to create 2 cards from one. And this is a simple version of the floating frame technique, and it's just a nice easy one, but really effective. Then we'll do this one. This is a bit of a fancy fold, which really showcases both sides of the designer series paper, and it's just a nice simple kind of layout. We're going to do some stamping, and we're going to use sponge daubers to colour in our floral element. Then we've got this one. This has a few more layers, a few more techniques to it. We're actually going to be colouring the flowers. We're going to be stamping with coloured ink and then just using a little bit of water or wink of Stella just to softly sort of spread the colour just to give a really nice pastel effect. And this one is a bit glittery because it's got wink of Stella on it. And optional embossing, some tearing and a lovely double bow, and this is just quite a nice one to sort of showcase different elements. And then finally, this is a really simple one because I've done the die cutting for you, so it just involves cutting a little bit of paper, stamping a sentiment and putting it together. So as well as your basic craft tools, your adhesives, trimmer and scissors, you are going to need a few other supplies. So inks, I've taken the ink colours from the papers, so I'm using Blackberry Bliss, Berry Burst, Timid Tiger, Mossy Meadow and Pretty Peacock. And these are just, again, taken from the papers. You may be able to find colours in your stash that match the papers nicely, even if you don't have these exact colours. I'm also using some blends, stamping blends. Now I've got a collection here, I probably won't use them all, but again, these colours match the papers as well. So again, Berry Burst, Mossy Meadow. I've got Old Olive, which is a lighter version of the Mossy Meadow, which works just as well, and Timid Tiger and the Petal Pink. And then obviously black ink pad is always useful. And I've got some sponge daubers here because we're going to be colouring some of the flowers with those. If you've got small blending brushes, that would work as well. And another colouring technique I'm going to try is with the water painter or wink of Stella. And so you'll need either a wink of Stella, a water painter or a small paintbrush, or all three. And then also you're going to need some sentiment stamps. So I will be using some of them from this stamp set, but I'll use some others as well that I've got lying around that kind of fit the cards. And there's some optional embossing to do, and I'm using the exposed brick embossing folder on mine. I quite like the sort of grungy look on that one. And then also you'll need a rectangle die or any simple shape die. It could be a circle, a square, but I'm using this one from the Textured Notes die set because it's just perfectly sized to create this frame on this card. But just have a look, see what you've got. You probably have something suitable. For the first card design, we just need some white cardstock, and if you received the box with the kit already prepped for you, it looks like this with the white card bases and the white card panels. If you haven't received the box and you've just got the tutorial, then there is a PDF that accompanies this video with all the measurements in, and you can just reach out. If you don't have that already, reach out to me, just send me an email and I'll send it through to you. So it's basically 2 standard white card bases, 2 panels of white cardstock which measure 10 centimeters by 14.3, and then one that is slightly smaller at 9.5 by 13.8, and this is the one that we're going to be stamping onto. But first of all, I'm going to do myself a bit of a guide. So whatever die you're using, place it onto the card and grab a pencil. I'm going to make a mark just on the outside of the die because the cutting edge of the die is more on the outside. So this is just going to be a really rough guide to where I'm going to be cutting later. I can always use my eraser to erase that out later. So the reason I've done that is because we're going to be cutting out this shape, and we're going to have the inside piece on one card and the frame on the other, but we want to have the pattern, the design, going over the edge as much as possible. So this is going to get the best look from this technique. So in the set you've got a small leafy image, a medium-sized flower and a very large stamp. So it is going to be a bit trickier to kind of get as many of these stamped images on the card as possible, and trying to overlap this line as much as possible as well. So you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to put my first one just here, right in the corner, and a lot of that flower is going to overlap the line. So that's kind of what we want, but we also want a lot of the nice flower bits in the frame and on the inside as well. So that's the kind of tricky part, is to try and get it so that you're going to see that lovely flower in all parts of the surface. So I'm going to put those two in first. I'm going to see if I can fill a gap with this flower right here. And then I'll put another one of those just here. I think I can get another one of these big ones. Let's see, rotate that round. Another one here. I'm going to put another one of those right here. In fact, I'm going to go just going to use this leafy one just to add some leaves around the edge and just fill in those gaps. It's quite hard to fill in the middle gaps because the stamp is not small enough really to go in, but that will be fine. I'll just do another little leaf there. So I'm using a combination of the Timid Tiger, Petal Pink, and some greens. This is Mossy Meadow and Old Olive. And I don't do anything really fancy with my colouring. I'm not a big expert in colouring. I just do what I need to get the colour on and make it look okay. Because these are quite large areas, I'm just getting a solid base of colour in the light version of the blends, because obviously we've got a slightly lighter and a slightly darker pair. So I just don't take too long just to get a wash of the lighter colour over the whole flower. And I'm going to go and do that on all of these big roses. Then I'm going to take the darker version. I'm just going to add some colour just on the outside of each of these petals. Now, I found with this colour, there's not massive difference between the light and the dark. So when I've done this, when it's dry, the colour's quite soft. It's quite a soft difference. So I don't need to worry about blending it too much. Some of the blends, there is quite a distinct difference between the two, and I'll show you that on the greens when I do the leaves. They require a little bit more blending, but just see how you get on. I think this is quite a soft look. So just following the lines of the petals and going, it's kind of where they would cast a shadow on the petal underneath it. That's all, nothing clever, just adds a little bit of depth. So I'm just going to do the same again with the Petal Pink, starting with the light, getting a wash of colour. Then the dark, kind of going on the inside of the petal and out to the sides of each. And then adding a little bit of this light Timid Tiger, just a few little spots on the inside, covering the centre. Because that is quite a distinct colour change, I'm going to blend with the dark Petal Pink and just do circles over the join to transition it a little bit and soften those edges. Okay, then the leaves. So starting with the light Old Olive, that's the lightest. I'm going to do a watercolour over the leaves of the big flowers. And then with the dark Old Olive, just going to add some low lights to the base of the leaves and kind of along the spine of the leaf. I do need to just soften those transitions a little bit. So little circles over that darker colour, over the edge of it, or just sort of blend it into the lighter colour a little bit more. Makes it look less harsh and adds a little bit extra shading. And I'm just going to go and do the rest of the leaves with the Mossy Meadow. So the final step is to try and fill in these gaps a little bit more. Now you may have a really small leaf or flower stamp that you can use just to kind of get rid of some of this white space. But I'm using this sort of little splatter stamp. This comes from the Spotlight in Nature stamp set, but you may have something like this. And I'm just going to use my Mossy Meadow. I'm going to stamp it off first, just so that it's very subtle. And I'm just going to go, and I'm going to make sure especially I'm leaving no white gaps where there's part of my frame where the line is, because I just want all of those bits to have something. So there we go, I've just added some colour and I've got no blank white space now. Now I'm going to place my die back where I had it, just in the middle. I can take this down just to secure it so that it doesn't move around, and I'm going to cut this and create my frame. And this is the result. As you can see, I've got colour on the frame and I've got colour on this panel here, so I've got quite a nice balance, which is what I was trying to do at the beginning. So now we just need to mount these. So this one I'm going to mount on a white piece, a white panel, and stamp a sentiment in the centre, and that's just going to go on the front of the card like this. This one you can mount it first on an extra layer if you want to, if you like an extra layer like that, or you can have it just very plain and simple straight on your card base. I'll leave that one up to you. And we're going to attach them with dimensionals and then stamp a nice clean sentiment on. So I'll just get those attached. If you've got a pencil line, I forgot to say, you can just use your eraser just to take it away. I can't actually see mine anymore. Maybe a little bit there, but yeah, maybe do that before you've stuck it down. But this one is a lovely large sentiment that fits perfectly in this sized aperture, so that's what I'm going to use. Just and on here you can use one of the sentiments from from here. I quite like this. You Made My Day, so I'm going to use that one. Let's test it first. And I'm just going to finish off with some of these low profile dots. Just dot them about here and there. So this 2 cards in 1 idea is a really fun one to do with any stamp set or even designer series paper. Card number 2 is our fancy fold, which uses the lovely designer series paper, but in your kit you'll have a couple of card bases which are single sheet card bases, and these pieces of card are just 1/4 of an A4, so they're 10.5 by 14.8, and a couple of these layers and some white pieces that will go on the inside, and this lovely die cut from the Spotlight in Nature dies, and so you'll have some white cardstock in there for stamping onto as well. So I've chosen this design to do one of my cards because it coordinates really nicely with the Night of Navy and the Berry Burst layers. And the first thing you want to do is, if your paper has a direction, just make sure that you've worked out that it's this way, for example. I don't think it really matters, but I think it kind of looks a bit better that way. So once you've established the direction of your paper, you want to rotate it 90 degrees, and you're going to cut a piece that measures 13.3 centimetres. So you've got a strip that's 13.3 centimetres and it's the full 12 inches. So on this design, I kind of want this to be on the inside and this to kind of show a little bit on the outside. So I'm just going to put it into my trimmer this way. So with the inside pattern facing down, I'm going to score at 9 centimetres, 18 centimetres and 27 centimetres. So now I have these 3 panels that get folded back and forth, and then this one that just folds back on itself, and that's what's going to show on the front of my card. So just use your bone folder to make sure that those folds are as straight as possible. So the sides line up, the edges line up as much as you can, because you kind of want to overhang a little bit. And then same on this side, just get things a little bit straighter. So hopefully you've got nothing overhanging too much and it's all straight. So that's your paper piece ready. I'm just going to glue that onto the card layer. Now, I have made my layers quite large on this, so what I decided after I sent the bits to you, that I might just cut this layer down a little bit. So I'm going to cut this one down by 1/2 centimetre on the top and the side, so it will end up being 9.5 by 13.8. Just taking a little bit off so that it's a smaller border. So making sure that this folds out this way, I'm going to glue on the back, place it on there, glue that down, and I'm also going to I'm also going to glue this tab down just so that it's more sturdy. So now it opens up like this, and I can glue this on my card base. Like so. Simple. So now I've just got to do a bit of stamping. So take some scrap white card and your stamp and your black ink. I'm just going to do one of these nice large flowers. Just let that black ink dry for a minute, and then we're going to use sponge daubers to colour this in. You can use blends if you want to, or any other means of colouring, watercolour pencils, it's up to you. Just like this, the soft effect that you get with these blends. So I'm taking my Berry Burst for the roses, and just soften the ink on your scrap paper first, and then I'm just doing really light circles, starting in the middle and working out. It just keeps it really nice and soft. And with this technique, you will go over the edges, and that is perfectly fine. So don't worry about that. And then I'm going to use Pretty Peacock for the leaves on this one. So this time I'm just going to use the edge side of the sponge dauber and do little twists. So I'm sort of just twisting my fingers a little bit just to get some soft colour on the leaves. And again, I don't mind if I go outside the lines, just starting really, really soft and then building up the colour. And you don't need much ink on these at all, so you don't want to get them too wet. I'm just going to add a little bit more to the centre of those flowers. I quite like how soft that is, so I'm going to use the die and die cut that. There's our nice floral element there. So for the inside of the card, you can also do a little stamped image. So taking the smaller stamp this time, I'm going to do a little flower just in the corner and use the same technique to get some colour on. So this bit goes on the inside of the card, just glue that down in the centre. And just lay out where you want the flower to go, and then you see where you have room to stamp a little sentiment. So I'm going to do mine a thank you card, and I'm going to use this one. Since I've got this stamp set out already, might as well make use of it. And I'm just going to stamp that in black ink. I'm going to attach this to the front with dimensionals. And the same with the flower. And finish off with these low profile dots. For card number 3, we have 2 different colour card bases, and we have the white layers, which are 10 centimetres by 14.3, and then we have these additional white layers here that are just 7 centimetres by 10.5 centimetres. And we're going to be cutting some designer series paper and tearing it, and we're also going to be stamping the flower. And I've actually used some scrap of white card to stamp the flower again and have sort of raised element on there, so I'll show you that as well. So first of all, I'm going to cut my designer series paper for the card and choose ones that kind of go with the Blackberry Bliss or Pretty Peacock. So I'm going to do one with the Blackberry Bliss base. I've chosen this design, and I'm going to cut this down to 6 centimetres wide by 13.8 centimetres. 13.8 high by 6 centimetres. And actually, I've got this piece here which I've just cut off, same length, height, but just a couple of, well, about, I'd say 3 centimetres wide, which on the other side is a lovely coordinating colour in a plainer design. So I've got my paper, and I just need the white layer first of all, which will go underneath. And you can leave this plain or you can emboss it. I'm going to use the exposed brick embossing folder and run that through, and this is what it looks like. And I'm going to glue that down, and I'm going to get my papers attached. So if you prefer a straight edge, just use a straight edge like that, but I quite like to tear. So I'm going to tear a little strip off this left hand edge. I'm going to just probably about 0.5 centimetre, and I'm going to tear this little strip towards me so that I get some of this white edge on the bigger bit. So just a small little piece off there, and then I'm going to do the same with this piece, again tearing it towards me on the left hand side all the way down. Doesn't matter if it's wonky at all. And now I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the right hand side, and I'm going to glue that behind the pattern piece there. Just have a little bit peeking through just as a contrast. And now more glue on the back. Glue that onto the white layer. You will notice there is a little white border around the 3 sides. Next we're going to do the stamping, and as you can see I've got 2 different colours on this stamp, and it's because I've stamped the leaves in one colour and then I've stamped again in this Blackberry Bliss colour, and then cut out the central flowers and layered them on top. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So I've chosen the 2 colours that match the papers that I've cut on this one. Mossy Meadow for the leaves. So the flower with the leaves is just going to be stamped straight onto the small panel, which is 7 centimetres by 10.5. I'm just going to angle that slightly so that it mostly fits on. And then clean off the stamp, and then just find a little scrap of card, and I'm going to stamp it again. I just need the flowers really. I'm going to stamp it again in Blackberry Bliss. Doesn't matter that it's overhanging because we won't need the leaves, we're just cutting those off. So we're actually going to do a little bit of, it's kind of watercolouring, it's not full watercolouring. This is just normal cardstock. It's not going to take a lot of water, so whatever we do at this point, we're not going to get it too wet. But you can take a damp paintbrush or one of your water painters, and I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit of water because I just want the smallest amount of water on the brush. It's just going to be damp rather than wet. And then what you can do is just use a little bit of that water to spread some of the green colour from the outline into the leaves, and it's very subtle. And again, you don't want it wet as such. You're just dampening it really, and activating that ink. Just cleaning off my brush because it's a little bit purple, and pulling that ink colour out from the edge in. So if you wanted a little bit more colour, take a block, put a little bit of your ink directly from the ink pad onto the block, and very diluted, really wants to be very subtle, you can just add a little bit of extra colour. You can see that even with that small amount on the tip of my brush, it's coming out quite dark. So really you want to go easy with that because you can't take it away or really blend it particularly well. This paper isn't really meant for water blending. So less is more, keep it soft, just add a little bit here and there. I'm keeping most of the leaf white, just adding a little bit of colour into the centre, like so. The other thing you can do is take your Wink of Stella and use your damp Wink of Stella brush to pull out the colour once again. It doesn't pull the colour out in the same way as water because it's more alcohol based, this. But what you can do is pick up some of the colour with your Wink of Stella brush and paint, or drip just a little bit of the Wink of Stella on to a block and use your water painter or paintbrush. That way you're not going to mess up your Wink of Stella brush, and you can control exactly how much of that sparkle you pick up. Sometimes I find that the Wink of Stella can kind of blob out a little bit sometimes, so you don't want that to happen on here. You want to keep it really, really soft. And I'm just adding tiny bits of colour to that Wink of Stella and keeping it fairly subtle. You just go over those darker ones. Just add a little bit more colour to the inner parts of the leaves. Keeping it soft. Just a bit of sparkle there. And then we're going to do exactly the same with the Blackberry Bliss. I'll just clean that off. Just add a little bit of Blackberry Bliss in case we need it. Let's try with the damp brush first of all. This is a really nice deep colour, so you should get a little bit of it spreading out. So once that's coloured in and dry, you can fussy cut round just the flowers. So we're just going to layer that up onto the leaves. So before I assemble it, I am going to add a few little splatters and of ink to this, so I'm just going to pick up with a wet brush, pick up some of that ink and tap on my paintbrush until some splats fall down, or you can, if you don't mind, using your fingers to flick on, you can do that. And then the other thing, again, this is optional, carefully use the edge of your scissor blade along the edge of your card to rough it up. This just adds some kind of grunginess, I guess, to the card, makes it not too formal and neat, kind of goes with the sort of embossed and the torn edges, just makes it not too perfect. So I'm going to attach that with dimensionals, and the same with the flowers. Need another small scrap of cardstock to fit whatever sentiment you'll be using. Just going to use this one again, You Made My Day. And you use your trimmer or scissors to cut around that. And very carefully, because these are very sharp, I'm going to rough up those edges as well. And the ribbon I have actually cut in half lengthways. So work out how much you'll need to make a nice bow and then halve it. So it's fairly straightforward. If you go slow, you can cut up the centre. If you put the two strands together, tie the bow, and just get rid of any strands that are kind of coming out, little frayed bits. And that makes a really pretty bow. And you can kind of trim the ends off a little bit. And then use a glue dot to attach it to your card. And add the sentiment with a dimensional. Just add a couple of these little dots. For the final card, you'll be pleased to know this is very simple. I've done the die cutting for you on here and I've given you two different colourways. And all you need to do is cut a piece of your designer series paper to fit within this panel here. So you need to cut a piece that measures 5.5 centimetres by 10 centimetres. And I've cut myself one already, chosen this design here. It's got some of that beige in the base and it's got the purple flowers which coordinate. So have a look through your papers and see which ones you like the look of for each colourway. And really simply, I've got the card base. So you'll have a beige and a petal pink, and then your layer, which gets glued on. Your paper gets glued on the small panel. And then you've got these die cuts. Now, a really good tip for putting glue on these intricate die cuts is with a silicone brush, a small silicone brush that's been chopped off so that about 1/2 centimetre of the bristles remain. So you've got this kind of effect, and then you can use that to dab glue on. So ideally you'll have a silicone mat or just a piece of plastic or something that you can use that can be thrown away. I've got a piece of cellophane here, just an old bag that I was going to throw away, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue, a few dots of glue on there, and then use my silicone brush to dab into the glue. So you only got like a small amount of glue on the bristles, and then just dab the silicone brush all over the back of that die cut, and it just distributes just enough glue to the die cut without anything splurging out, without getting any mess anywhere. So it's a really, really good tip. So if you've received the Card Club box and you have one of these brushes, silicone brushes in your kit, that's what it's for. So I thought you might be wondering what on earth I've included in your kit this month, but that's all it's for. So it just means you've got a really nice amount of glue, not too much, not too little, and hopefully less mess. Now you can just wash this now. Sooner you wash it, the better really, but the glue, once dry, will pick off. So don't worry too much if it's dried. You just give it a little scratch off and the glue will come off. Okay, so now just gonna wrap a little bit of ribbon around this paper. So just cut it a little bit bigger, maybe a couple of centimetres bigger either side, and use some tape or your tape runner to one side, turn it over, and then you can straighten it up and go in with some more dimensionals and place it in the centre, and then another small piece of ribbon to tie in a single knot. Just pull it tight and then trim the ends. And then you've got a little strip of basic beige cardstock for a sentiment. If it's too narrow, there's some spare card in the bottom of your box. So yeah, depending on the size of your sentiment, you may just need to cut yourself a little bit bigger piece. And I'm going to use my Blackberry Bliss ink to stamp this happy birthday on there. You can keep it straight and just trim it straight, or you can fussy cut. Let's just trim this and you can see the difference. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off the top and bottom. I just haven't angled. So it's a nice simple layout. It has the paper as the main feature, but then it has the die cuts that are the same colour, which makes it look a little bit like an embossed background. It just adds a nice subtle effect. Hope you like that one. So here are today's cards. I hope you've enjoyed the different colouring techniques and the different styles of card, and more importantly, I hope you've enjoyed using this beautiful paper, and I'm sure you've got lots more projects in mind, and I hope you enjoy continuing to craft with it. I'll look forward to seeing you next month, where we are starting our Christmas series of Card Club. So September, October and November are going to be all about Christmas, and we are starting with the Modern Christmas Suite with the Ornamental Christmas Bundle. It is stunning paper. It's a black, white and gold theme, and we're going to have so much fun playing with these gorgeous papers and this bundle. So I shall look forward to seeing you next month. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.